there's a lot of guys that are just marginal major leaguers right now. Madrigal, Brewer, Quas. I think personally, I don't know any other way, and I'm a fan of his. Morel was a dud in the first half of the season. He was. His defense, it didn't work. Yep. We don't know how long it'll last, and the offense has regressed again, even though the home runs are there. So I'm hoping for a big second half from him, but we'll see. Yeah. I think Hector Neris, maybe not his fault, but he has been a dud in the first half too. He was your one free agent addition to the bullpen, and it has helped not at all.
Yeah, well, Morel, that was May. It was all of May when it looked like it was a lot of bad luck. The BABIP was so low, the exit velos and all of the batted ball data was still so good, and you're like, his expected stats were great, and you're like, this can't last forever. But yeah, since then, I think for the most part, a lot of that has not looked as good, right? Like the batted ball data has gotten a little worse. I still think the approach at the plate has been good as far as walks and strikeouts and that kind of stuff and chasing. But I think you are anecdotally seeing him in between on pitches and taking more pitches in the zone than he was earlier in the year when you were like, the approach is still so good. I think that's been something that's hurt him a little bit. And so, yeah, I'd agree with Luke in that you felt like it's only a matter of time till the numbers started to improve because all this other data, underlying data, was telling us that it should, but it really hasn't that to much of a positive extent. And so, yeah, you're looking at it's to the point where you're seeing people saying Morel needs to be benched, Morel needs to whatever it is, and you're like, did not expect that going into this year. I think that's so when you talk about him being a dud, it's just you expected him to have at least a solid year, and not necessarily getting there, or at least you're not getting it to the extent that you thought you would. Giving him the keys to third base, letting him play every day. You thought he'd have at least offensively a lot better year, and you're not really getting that.
Yeah, everyone knows I'm a big supporter.
96 WRC plus, by the way.
96,
Morel,
so
below league average.
Below league average, barely.
And the worst defensive third baseman.
I think it's still up there for sure.
Yes.
I think he's still number one worst.
Yeah. Everyone, like I was saying, everyone knows I'm a big Morel defender. When Sarah, our producer, slanders, I want to tell her to go jump in the lake.
I have nothing to say.
Out, though.
I see you in the YouTube chat. Okay?
I know.
It's a good day to be a lake jumper.
It is a good one.
Yeah, it is a good day to be a lake jumper, to be fair. But in all seriousness, I tweeted the other day, I'm never giving up on Christopher Morel. I'm really not giving up on him. He reminds, the slander and everything, it reminds me all so much of watching Kyle Schwarber the first couple years after the ACL injury with the Cubs. This guy, we saw it yesterday, the raw power that he displays. I think Cliff Floyd said it best on Marquee on Saturday night. I'm a real sicko. I watched the Marquee postgame after those two games and spent the entire day watching the Cubs. I watched that postgame. And why?
That's almost disturbing.
I know. But I'm glad I watched it because Cliff Floyd had great insight on Christopher Morel. And he talked about how he, like I said about Dansby, is not taking the ball to right center either. He's not taking the ball the other way. And until he starts to show that more, he is not going things aren't probably going to change. And you guys know, I'm not some hitting expert. The guy played in the major leagues for a really long time. He knows what he's talking about. I'm more likely to listen to him and at least that's probably a good reason why things haven't gone his way. Like you said, Ryan, a little bit in between. It feels like every at bat he's check swinging at least once or twice. And yeah, he's let some he's gotten screwed on a few strike three calls on balls that are outside the zone, but just barely not there. And then he's gotten, gifted some too. It's all kind of evened out. I think that his thing, like I said with Dansby, probably good to have a good week off here, and hopefully it transcends because he did have a great his best game. You can argue yesterday was his best game of the season. 2-homer game. You know what I mean?
First multi-homer game, right?
Right. So the reason that it reminds me so much of Kyle Schwarber when he first came back to the Cubs and after the ACL injury and post 2016 is he leads the team in homers. He's 18 homers. He's still hitting the ball out of the park. He just needs to hit a little bit more. And I think he can develop into what I think is an all-star caliber player. Has it taken a bump in a road this year, and am I surprised by that? Yes, because I felt like last year he was better. He was significantly better than year one when he first came up. So as Theo Epstein always says, development isn't always linear. I think that there are good things from this first half from him in terms of the walk rate and the K rate. But yeah, they need him. They need him to produce more. I can complain about the front office not, bringing someone in to go with him, Bellinger and Sayas, that's more proven. But at the same time, we also as a fan, they need him. They and we need him to perform better. So yeah, I would agree he was a dud, and it's been a massive disappointment. But I'm still in. I'm still all in. I'm going down with the ship with the guy.
It's one of those things. I think like he has the tools. Like he has the raw power. He has the athleticism. He has all that, and you're just trying to get to a point where it clicks for him. And like I think he actually I'm looking at his last 11 games or so. Again, it's just small sample sizes, so it may just be more of like looking for silver linings. But his last 11 games going to the break, he hit 250. He had a 798 OPS. He did strike out 15 times and only walked twice. So there's a little give and take, obviously, in that. But a little bit results-wise, a little bit better over the last week and a half or so of games. You need to get him to a point where it's you see everything click for him. I think he has the tools to be a really good hitter. I don't know if he'll ever be a superstar bat, but I think he has the tools to be a really positive part of this lineup now and in the future. But you just got to get him to a point, like I said, where it clicks for him, and he doesn't look in between. Like the walk rates are still good in the strike. Like he's not chasing a lot. Like all the underlying stuff says it's good, but then at some point you need the results too. And he's hitting 202 with a 690 OPS going into the All-Star break. It just at the end of the day, it does have to improve, right? Like I said it earlier. At some point you are what your record is as a team. Well, at some point you are what your stats say you are as a hitter too, because you can't just go an entire year and saying, man, he got really unlucky. Like the numbers do have to improve, and along with Swanson, I think Morel's another guy that you're like, okay, candidate for some positive regression in the second half. But he's another guy that just got to go out and do it because they need that from him.
Yeah. And
Eva Wax says, by the way, got to be done with him at third base. Might have to say he'll never be good at third. I'm not ready to go there. I just don't think they need to play him at third in the second half of the season. Yeah. We've seen a good sample size. If he wants to work on that nonstop in the offseason and come back at spring training and say, look how much better I am, I'm open to that conversation. But if you're trying to get to the postseason right now, that experiment for me is over in the second half. For the most part. Not every day, but way less often than he's playing third base now.
That's my problem with Morel. Like, I like him, and I like when he's hot, but I don't like his position. I think that's my biggest issue with him is that he's not playing the position that is best for him, and it's frustrating.
So that's up to the manager, Sarah. Like, the second half, that's going to be a manager decision.
Right.
And I'm not,
like he said, like you're seeing that more Miles Mastrobuoni getting third base starts and Morel de-aging. Like obviously that's been help. Like that's they've been able to do that because of Cody Bellinger's injury. So say us back out in the outfield, Bush at first, PCA in the center. You do have more time, or you do have more open time at the DH position where you can put Morel. But as we've talked, like when once guys start getting healthy, it's gonna be. All right, well, how do you kind of fit this puzzle together?
Right. Well, the whole third base thing, I'm not letting up on this. I mean, they could have figured this out last year. And maybe they did, and maybe Craig Counsell was just bullish on it, okay? Maybe. Because he was right. They need to play Morel every day. Coming in the year, you needed to play Morel every day, and third base was an open spot, all right? It
was the right call.
So I can agree to disagree on that fact. That factor, the fact that they just never tried to figure it out last season. But I tend to agree with Luke on the fact that I haven't given up on him at third base yet, because even though the outs above average are terrible and all this and that, I do feel like in some aspects it has improved, but you don't have to play him at third base every single day. And unless they shake this roster up a little bit, which I'm not against, then maybe you can play him at second base or play him, maybe he is just the DH. I don't know. All I know is that the Cubs, the way they act these last couple years under this front office, they like to be able to utilize the DH with other guys and not just have one guy there. I'm not saying that I support that. I'm not saying that it's the right move, but I just think that if they eventually move on from Morel, he is absolutely going to come back to haunt us. If there is one player on this roster that will absolutely haunt us, if we move on from him just because you couldn't find a goddamn position for him, it will feel just like Kyle Schwarber all over again.
We all silly like the mayor.